Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of The Strong and Capable. I am your host, Brigette Heller, and I have on someone today who I'm so excited because we're going to let the spirit totally guide this meeting. It's going to be amazing. Her name is Miss Christy Wright. I hope you've heard of her. If you haven't, you need to. Total secret here. She is the only podcast that I listen to.
I'm so honored.
No, seriously, everyone always asks me what I listen to because I podcast.
Sure.
I honestly don't have a lot of time to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And so I don't, but I listen to yours.
Oh, well, thank you. That's awesome.
So anyway, welcome on the show, Christy. I'm so glad you're here. Would you mind telling the audience a little bit about who you are and what you're doing in life right now?
Yeah, great question. It's a question a lot of people are asking these days. Right?
I know.
So I'm a author and speaker. That's the main, job title, business coach. And then I worked for Ramsey Solutions for 12 years until about a year ago, God called me to leave. And so I left that in November. And for the last year, I've actually been building a business training speakers. And so it's been really cool to see how God has used my story of being on some of the biggest stages in the world to now train people to craft messages. So it's not just for professional speakers, it's really for anyone that talks in front of anyone because this is a skill we don't have, and it's the number one fear for people. We just make it up as we go, and so that's been really fun through, courses and coaching and all that good stuff, and then, and so starting a new business, but then also I'd say, honestly, my hardest job is being mom of 3 little kids. So I've got Carter, Conley, and Mary Grace, 7 or 8 now, 8, 6, and 3, and so our house is crazy and loud and awesome and all the things that comes with those toddler years. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag of all the different things going on at once.
Yeah, that age that you're in, that is a wild time.
It really is. It feels like a circus most days,
Uh-huh.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were in that age, I mean, my kids are older. This is what's wild for me. I'm the old person in the room now. It's so weird. So weird because my youngest is 14 and my oldest is in college and married.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've transitioned, but that
Uh-huh.
time that you're talking about, it was just constant. Never
Yes.
stops.
Yes.
Never.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So busy. So I love that you've taken this total transition. I'm a woman of the stage. I
Yeah.
was just recently in a competition,
Oh, wow.
actually, called the Next Great American Speaker. It's going to be
Yeah.
like American Idol, but for
Yeah.
speakers. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've heard of it. Anyway, so
Mm-mm.
I was just in that and it was in the semifinals. It was a ton of fun. And you're right, there are so many people. It was fascinating going through the whole audition process
Yeah.
because I have been a nervous speaker in the
Yeah.
past,
Yeah.
but through life have
Mhm.
overcome and developed
Yeah.
that skill. But being in the room with so many people where they were in tears, just standing in front
Mhm.
of 20 of their peers who were
Yeah.
cheering them on,
Right.
complete,
Right.
beautiful, supportive room. They couldn't stand there and share their story without paper in front of them,
Yeah.
eyes on paper, stumbling through it.
Yeah.
It was 60 seconds. That's all you got, our first
Mhm.
round of auditions.
Yeah.
And it was my heart just went out to so many people because the greatest thing we have to share is our story.
Mhm.
If you don't have the skills to share it,
Yeah.
then how do you impact the way that I think our heart calls us to?
Well, I think it's so hard too because a lot of people fall in one of two extremes I've noticed, and this is an overgeneralization, but just being in this world for a long time, but also specifically focusing on the speaking world this last year, you've got one of two extremes. You have the people that are terrified, right? Like they're like, I don't want to be in front of people. I don't want the spotlight. And God might be calling them to speak. And they've got a great story or a great message of building their business or something that people want to know about that they could encourage them. And not even necessarily on a stage. Could be a podcast, could be on a YouTube channel, could be on a workshop or coaching. It doesn't have to just be the stage life, but this ability to communicate what's in your head and your heart is such an important skill, regardless of the medium. And no one is trained. So you've got these people that are paralyzed with fear, or they just don't know what they're doing. They kind of fumble around, they ramble, they're just, they just struggle. Well, then you have the other extreme, people that I would say would be in the they want to be a speaker, they know they're a speaker, and it's like a shtick for them. It's like, but like everything is showy and performery, and it's like, wow, and here's my prop, and it's just like so disingenuous. And you're like, "Dang, pull in the middle here." Of I want the heart from you guys that are super scared, and I want the confidence from you guys that are not scared to be in front of people, and you put those together, and you could have a really passionate, genuine, authentic communicator that makes an impact in people, and that's what I do. I try to pull the strengths of both these extremes and send people out because Neither of these extremes are very effective, and unfortunately, that's what I see the most of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you've had a different view of it than I have, but I would agree with that. Like you said, overgeneralization, of course,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's really interesting. The showy ones, I had a hard time within the competition because they're
Mhm.
obvious. Like
Yeah.
there's a
Look at
presence.
me.
Yeah, there's a full thing happening there.
Mhm.
And I am really sensitive to if you're genuine or not. I don't
Mhm.
know if that's when you're spiritually in tune. That's just
Yeah,
something I
yeah,
think that comes with that. But
yeah,
I struggle with those people a lot. And you're right. The best thing that if we could develop any skill, it's how to communicate. Communicate with self, communicate
yeah,
with God, communicate with others. These are the communication skills that we have to
yeah,
develop so that we can live a life of purpose and joy and any any situation you get stuck in and you don't know how to get out of it, it's almost always a communication problem with
yeah,
self, God, or
yeah.
other.
That's an interesting point. Well, it's funny when you talk about the showy people, and I just wanna go back to something you said because I think it's really powerful. I'm a person of faith, and so when I talk about this, I don't just help preachers, I help anyone. But as a person of faith, that foundation of faith is what I put all of my teaching through. So, for example, what I teach is you are never communicating for your benefit. You're never on a stage for your spotlight, for your applause, your standing ovation, your reviews, your likes, your faults. Never. You're there to serve and do God's work. And so, what's so interesting is the people that tend to be the more showy, performery people, it is all about them. How clever I am, how funny I am. Watch how I drop this line. Watch how I hit this slide. Watch how I use the stage and look at me and how many likes can I it's very, you can tell they're very focused on what they can get out of that performance. And the best speakers, the most effective speakers are those that are completely focused on the audience. What can I give? If that means that I'm going to tell you a story that moves me to tears and I'm crying because I didn't plan to tell it, it's super vulnerable for me, but it's going to help encourage you, then I'm going to look ugly. I'm going to have mascara on my face for your benefit, not to manipulate the crowd, but because God led me to tell that story I didn't plan to. Or if God tells you to not tell a story, that you planned it and be like, "God, that's so funny. It's gonna get so many laughs." And God's like, "Don't tell that story." You shut your mouth and you don't tell that story because you're there to serve the audience. And so I think that it's a total flip of focus. What's cool is going back to the fear side of it. When you focus on the crowd and giving value and serving them and showing up and solving problems, then it takes the fear away as well because you're not thinking about you. How do I look? Is my hair cute? Are they going to like me? Am I going to get good reviews? You're showing up and serving. And so I think when you show up and serve, it is just this beautiful middle where it takes the fear out of it for the people that are scared. I know it's valid to be scared and it takes practice and there's things you can do. But when you focus on the crowd, it helps that fear dissipate, but it also helps the showy people go, "This is not about you. This is not about you." Now, I know with the competition, it probably was about those people. Like that's it, they want to show what they can do, which I get it. But the whole heart behind communicating in any medium is to serve. It's to serve the people you're speaking to. And if we don't keep that in mind, man, spotlights and applause can become a drug so fast. Even the most holy person can get real caught up and like, well, I am so smart. Well, I am so clever. And we've just got to stay grounded that it is not about us. It's about God using us to help people.
I love that, and I think it's a beautiful segue into this season we're talking about break the mold, and how do you break the mold? And usually that mold has everything to do with yourself. We have these ideas we put on ourselves, these cages we kinda lock ourselves in with our ideas, and the only way we can truly serve and live the life we're meant to live is to break out of that
Mhm,
and follow, like you said, with a heart of service and a
mhm,
mind geared towards that and seeking, "How can I lift others? How can I serve others?"
mhm,
And our fear can stop us. I was in a training for this competition, and Pat Quinn was teaching it, and he said, "If you have stage fright, you're selfish." I'm like, "Whoa, that is quite bold." But he said, "No,
mhm.
seriously, if you have stage
You're
fright."
self-focused. Mhm,
Yeah. He said, "You are out there to serve people. And
mhm,
if you are so scared of what they like, exactly what you said, how your hair looks, how you're breathing," he said, "If you're focused on that,
mhm,
you're being selfish,
mhm,
and that's not the point of this. The point of
mhm.
this is to lift and serve people." And I think it's the same thing with our daily life.
Yeah,
If we're so scared to take the banana bread next door or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
whatever it is, or, even smiling, I found
yeah,
sometimes it takes bravery to
yeah.
smile in the store because
It
people
yeah,
are so
Uh-huh.
intent, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
But if we don't do those things, really, we're just still self-centered,
Mm.
self-focused.
Well, and
And
whatever you focus on increases. So if you're focused on your fear and your nerves, then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you focus on the crowd and like how like I will remind myself, Lord, before I go on stage, there are stories in this room that I don't know. And there are people in this room that have walked in with baggage and bad news and struggles that I have no idea, but you do. And so let me be sensitive to that. So the more you train your focus to serving, the bigger that gets. And you feel that much more like a deep conviction. You speak from this conviction. You speak from this passion. And so it can come off as a really talented performer, but in a good way, not in a showy way. It's not a surface performance. Like when I speak to the crowd and I'm like, I mean what I say. But if you were looking from the outside, I'd be like, wow, like she's a really passionate speaker, which is a great quality to have. But it comes from this deep place of conviction. I freaking mean it. I mean what I'm saying. And I think that the heart behind where you're coming from as you're presenting makes all the difference. And to your point, people can read it. People can read a speaker, they can see, and that's true for business leaders or influencers or social media, anything. They can see if you're disingenuous. They can see if you're self-focused and what can you get, and they can tell if you're there to serve them or not, and it makes all the difference.
yeah, it's true. And I think if you approach it with that heart of service, as you were saying, and the stories that come out are usually surprising. And you
Mhm.
already kind of mentioned this. I have this story I share, and I call it the poop story.
Great,
And
sure.
I am shocked at how many times I am called to share that story because it's
Okay.
embarrassing and it's
Yeah, yeah,
goofy and it's,
yeah.
essentially, very, very short version, we were on this trip and our dog wouldn't go to the bathroom the whole time, and half an hour away from home, I hear my little kids, it's when they were the same age as yours, "No, no, and the dog is pooping on everything. I
Mm,
mean, everything.
mm-mm.
And we were horrified. There was nowhere nothing we could do. We couldn't pull
Sure,
over. We
sure.
get home, husband takes the kids, and I get the car. And it's so bad, it's like Q-tip bad in this
Yeah, yeah,
car. It was
yeah.
horrible. And I was fine with it all because moms, we do what we do until I saw my purse. And it was
Mhm.
the first purse I had had post diaper bag.
Yeah,
And I saw my purse and I just lost it. That
yeah.
was it for me. Anyway, not having money to replace it, not having anything to do with it, I threw it in the wash, hoping it was a leather purse that it would work out. And it came out more beautiful, more soft than it ever had been. And so I would joke about this purse. People would compliment. I'd be like, "Oh, this crafty little thing. It's been through
Mhm.
so much. You have no idea."
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, point is, what I often talk to people about is their divine identity and how beautifully quality made they are and how we think we're stained and the world sees it.
Mhm.
They don't.
Right,
And we're not.
right. Yeah.
We're not. And it always comes back to self-worth, and it's fascinating to me how often I have to tell this dang hope story.
Mhm.
So, I love that you brought that up because I when you come with a heart of service, you're gonna share things that you never thought you would, but that will impact in massive
That's
ways.
right. That's right.
So for you, breaking the mold, what does that look like to become something new, to transform your life? You've been doing that a lot this year.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what does
it's
that look like?
so one of the awesome things about starting your own business, which many, I'm sure, of your listeners know, I've coached women in business for years and I've done different things and coached lots of different industries. But now in this new season of really a clean slate, like I'm not building on what I have. I am, but it's like it was kind of wide open. One of the exciting parts of starting a new business is you can do anything. And one of the overwhelming things is you can do anything. And so I think for me, one of the things I've really prayed for and tried to work through in this last year is discernment on what is for me and what is not for me. And so I've had a lot of advice in a great way, like really good friends, trusted friends, like brilliant business minds are like, you should do this, you should do this. And some of those things I took and implemented in my business and they helped me a lot and helped bring revenue to my business. They were really wise. And other things people said, you should do this, you should do this. And I'm like, no, that's not for me. But you have to have the confidence and discernment to sift through that. So I think for me, breaking the mold is really deciding. I love the analogy of breaking the mold. It's like deciding that I don't have to be what people have already been. I don't have to be who I was the last 12 years. I don't have to be the Christy Wright that everyone knew at Ramsey. I can be a new version of me apart from Ramsey. and let God bring me into a new season. I mean, I'm still the same person, but I can be a new version of myself. And I want to be not the version that was under the Ramsey umbrella. Nothing was wrong with that. I learned incredible skills, speaking of, but I was also a part of that team where everything was under that umbrella through that filter. Now I'm going, okay, who am I apart from this? Who is my identity apart from this network and this organization? And so that's been a really fun thing to discover, overwhelming at times, but fun. And then at the same time, there's a part of me that goes, okay, all online businesses do this, all coaching businesses do this, all speaking training looks like this. And I'm instead of taking any of those things as a pattern or recipe, I'm treating it more like a buffet where it's like, I'm going to take this and this and this. I'm just going to take what I like and put it together and make my own recipe. I'm not following a recipe by the book, if that makes sense. And so, to me, I mean, I think that's how I'm breaking the mold. I'm making my own way. And I just keep reminding myself, it took me a few months to get my footing to realize I could, but I keep reminding myself like, I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. It's my business. I can do whatever I want. And so I can charge what I want. I can start, like, I'll sometimes, like last fall, I got some, like one email, but it's like you could have like 10,000 happy people and you get one mean one. You're like, especially like, when something's new, you're all vulnerable about it. And this one person was like, really unhappy that my course, I have a speaker training course called Stop Winging It. And the course was in the fall. It was through like October, November, December, and it was live. I taught it live. And I structured it this way on purpose, and it was only available while I was live. So when the course was over, it was over. I gave them like an extra month to watch the content. That was it. So I got an email, and it was just like, I just can't believe, John Maxwell does this, and so does this, and so does this, and they let us have access for a lifetime, and they let us have access for a year. And I'm like, good for them. I can do whatever I want to, and you have access for 3 months. Like, it's like, I'm just deciding what is right for me in my business, and it's not gonna make everyone happy, and no matter what you do, you're not gonna make everyone happy, so you've gotta do what's right for you, and I like to just treat what is available out there from an information standpoint, from a model standpoint, from seeing what works and what doesn't, best practice. I like to just treat it like a buffet, and go, "I'll have a little bit of this and a little bit of this. I'm gonna do this, but not that. I'm not in the mood for that right now, maybe later," and just put it together into something that works for me and my business and what I feel is right for me.
What is for me? I think it's the best question to ask. You said that. What is for me? What is for me? And that buffet analogy is great. I think it's interesting because when you approach it with some education, so I see two things. I see women, especially in business, get wrapped up in educating, educating,
Yeah,
educating, but never moving forward.
right.
They just take all the classes and never actually say what is for me and choose and move forward.
Mhm,
I'm sure you've seen tons of women like that,
mhm,
but
mhm. They're waiting for permission.
depends
Yeah.
from themselves, really.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I'm like, "It's not coming, so go ahead and do the thing."
At some point, you have to.
Yeah,
But so educate yourself so that you know what's in front of you on this buffet. But choose. You also can kind of tell when you're looking if there's a ton of grease on it, that's not your thing. Like
mhm,
choose the
mhm.
best things from what's in front of you and move forward. I don't know a single person who's successful that's doing it like everybody else.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I was in church, this was, like, several months ago, and we was during the worship time, and so, they have the words, the lyrics to the worship songs on the big screens, and in the background, they'll have some type of, like, landscape, and this one particular landscape was kind of like a mountain, hillside, forest, and there was this path, and it was like you could see a path, like, wide enough for a car to go up it, kind of a dirt path, and I just felt the Lord say, 'cause I was feeling kind of unsure about some of the things I was doing and lots of decisions in front of me with my business, and I felt the Lord say, "Christy, you've been on that path. You have been on the paved, not paved, but you've been on the path that has been blazed before you with Dave Ramsey. Like, you stand on the shoulders of giants. I learned from the best of the best, and now we're splitting off that path, and all you're seeing is forest, and that's overwhelming because there's no path in front of you. It's lots of trees, it is really dense, and you don't have markers of where to go. It's because 'cause you're blazing it, Christine. Like, you're truly blazing a new trail of what I'm asking you to do, and that is exciting, and it's nerve-wracking and scary, but it's also I do feel such a conviction that the reason I don't see out there what I'm supposed to do is because I'm gonna be the one to do it. And I think that's not true for me, I don't think I'm special, I think that's true for many people. You may have a season of training behind someone, but at some point, God's gonna call you out into the unknown, into the wilderness, into the new thing, because there's something He wants you to do that only you can do, and yes, it's scary, And it's also awesome because you're able to do something that you let God use you in a way that otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I was thinking about this reel that I saw on social media. I was trying to figure out who posted it, and then I realized it was you.
Oh, great.
I was like, it was you. And you were talking about how a lot of times when we can't see it, when it's overwhelming, it's because God wants to show us his work, that he's going to do it, that he's
Mhm.
going to be the one.
Yeah.
And I have experienced that. And I've even had people outside in my world say, Brigette, the reason this isn't coming together is because he wants to show you he's in charge, that this is his work. That
Oh,
and
wow.
it's been really powerful. I've experienced what you're talking about, where you're staring at the forest and you know you have to go through it, but you have no idea how, and you don't even know if you have a lantern to get through that darkness.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's really overwhelming, and he meets you there.
yeah.
He meets you there, and he will light the next step. I actually feel like one of the things I've been learning in my walk with the Lord, but also in my business in this last especially the last, like, I don't know, 3, 4 months. All of last year, and every single thing I needed, he provided it at the exact moment I needed it. Not a minute early.
Mhm.
Not a minute early. At the exact moment I needed it, which is, like, terrifying. It's like, "Oh, you're so awesome. Also, can you, like, give it to me 6 months in advance? Because this is so scary every time, like, are you gonna come through?" And it's interesting because I was talking to the Lord about it, and I just felt God say, because I kept feeling like, "Oh, well, this year's gonna be different." It made me feel, coming from my background of being in a massive organization that was planned out 18 months in advance, and
Mhm.
you had slides for your talk 6 months from now ready now and turned in, like, we were so prepared, practice, whatever, that the way that I've been operating the last year makes me feel unprepared. Even the voice of the enemy will go, you're lazy, you're not on top of your stuff, you're not holding it together." And I just started to feel like I was failing because I wasn't so prepared in advance on these things, but God was always coming through, and I always came through. Me and God at the last minute would always come through with the thing, whatever it was, the idea or execution on an idea. And I felt God say, "Christy, you know how to prepare. You know how to practice. You know how to plan. You are so good at that. I need to teach you how to walk by faith. So we're going to keep walking by faith. I'm going to give you things as you need them and not a moment too soon, not a moment early, so that you learn to depend and trust these muscles that I will come through for you." It's not just like a one-time thing. This is how we operate in my kingdom. We walk by faith. And it's this balance because you need both. You do need to plan, but I feel like God was like, "You got those skills. I need you to develop these skills and these muscles." And so it's a lot of it is this year is figuring out how to do that, figuring out how to trust God, like you're saying, to work and that he will come through. And if God hasn't told me to do something, it's because I'm not supposed to do something. It's not just making up stuff to do to, like, plan ahead. He's like, "No, no, no, there's nothing for you to do right now. And when you need to do something, I'll tell you."
That is what you just expressed. I feel so deeply. That has been my journey this
Mhm.
last while. And I mean, I don't know if you can see, I have a calendar on my
Oh,
wall.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Like,
wanna
I
plan the
like
thing.
it,
I get
right?
it,
Like,
me
I
too.
like that plan. I like to know when all these things are, but
Yep.
what you're talking about, I feel like so many of us are experiencing right now.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes of business, women I talk to, I'm seeing this huge wave. It's like there's this divide of people happening. Those who are seeking spiritualness and those who are like, I'm just gonna get on Netflix and become
Mhm.
myself there. And
Mhm.
we're seeing this divide in people. And as we see this divide, this is just, again, many conversations I've had. I have come across so many women specifically, more women than men, that are feeling called to speak up, to speak out.
Yes.
Their journey is what you were saying, where it's
Yep.
like, I need to speak, but I'm not supposed to speak until this moment. And then I
Yep.
don't know what I'm speaking on
Or I don't know
until
how. Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
whole moment happening and it's really intense
Yeah.
and intimidating,
Yep.
and yet amazing miracles are happening because of it.
Well, it's wild because I'm telling you, last year when God gave me the idea, which even how he gave me the idea to train speakers was this crazy God story. He gave it me at 3 months to the day from the day that I told Ramsey I needed to meet with them. Like, and God had told me 3 months. I mean, it's this wild God story. So he's giving me all these affirmations, and he took me one day. I was doing my seminary post because I'm in seminary right now at Fuller. And so I take one class at a time, and I was doing my post, and it was on Jeremiah. And so I was looking through Jeremiah to do this post for my homework. And he took me to Jeremiah 1:6. And this is where Jeremiah is called to be a prophet. And Jeremiah says, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I do not know how to speak." And the words jumped off the page of me. This is while God is telling me I'm supposed to train speakers. And I felt the Lord say, Christy, there are a lot of people that I'm going to use that don't know how to speak, and you're going to teach them. And so fast forward to August, I make this announcement, "Hey, I'm training speakers, and this is what I feel called to do in this season, and I have a course, and I have coaching, and I've got a free mini book, and here's how I'm getting this thing going, and here's what it looks like." And I thought, "Oh, isn't it in the goodness of God that he would give me a lane to run in that still honors Ramsey with all the restrictions and things I can't do in this season afterwards? How good of God to give me a lane to run in,
Mhm.
to provide an income for my family, use my business mind to build this thing." And as I nervously put it out there like, "Hey guys, hey, I think I'm supposed to train speakers. Hey, like this just this thing." Everyone is like, "I've been telling the Lord I need help. The Lord's been calling me to speak, but I keep telling him I don't know how. God has given me an opportunity to speak, but I don't know how." My putting myself out there is an answer to their prayer.
Mhm.
It isn't that just like God where he always has multiple purposes. And so I thought, "Oh my gosh, God's just taking care of me." And God's like, "No, I'm taking care of all these people. I'm taking care of you and I'm taking care of them through you with what you're doing." And so me putting this out there has actually been an answer to their prayers. And it's just phenomenal because he's calling people up. He's calling people up to speak and teach, and not just in the church world. I mean anywhere. Like believers, he's calling up his army and sending them out in all industries to be able to communicate and talk. And what's so cool is if you're a believer in a non-faith based space, people will see something different about you, even if you don't talk about God. And so you're able to be a light in these spaces that need light more than anything. So it's really, really cool a year into this. I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, I've hit my stride now. Like I was so shaky at first and so scared, like anytime anybody's doing something new. And now I'm like, oh man, like we're getting this thing going. I'm so confident in it because I've seen the fruit of it already, you know?
That's so cool. So exciting. And I agree. The army is being called up. And what's cool about it is I think those who are wanting to walk within the spiritual realm and live their
Mhm.
life, every part of it in that way. You already pointed it out. You do act different no
Mhm.
matter where you are. And people
Mhm.
do notice it. They'll ask
That's
you
right.
what's different about
That's
you.
right.
Why are you happy? Why
Yeah.
do they'll ask you these things. I've been asked them many, many, many times.
Mhm.
One job I was asked, "How do you deal with all this drama and it doesn't bug you?" I'm like, "'Cause it just doesn't matter."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When you have a different view of the world, then
That's
the
right.
little things don't bug you the same way.
Yeah.
But I have a good friend and she works in a school and she said, school and religion are separated. But if people don't think prayer isn't happening in school, they've never been a teacher because it takes a lot of faith to know how to love these kids, how to teach these kids, how to
Yeah.
reach them. And so every time those kids are gone from the classroom, guess what I'm doing? Just so
Yeah.
it isn't that separate because it takes me being in that place to serve the way they need it.
Right,
And
right,
I
yeah, that's
think
so good.
yeah, I think that's really what you're talking about, as we talk about breaking the mold, you have to fully be who you're meant to be to serve people the way that they need it. There are
Mhm,
people who need you, whoever is listening, they need you to step outside of this box, whether it's speaking, like Christy's talking
yeah,
about, or whether it's just serving and loving and leaving your own 4 walls. You have to get out. People need you, and the
right.
unique story that you have to offer can impact someone for good.
That's right, that's right. So good.
I have loved having you on. I'm
Thanks
so
for
glad that
having
you
me.
said yes to this.
Thanks for having me, what an honor.
So tell people, the audience, how can they find you? How can they connect with you? All the things.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, ChristyWright.com is where you can find all the things. I've got a new podcast, speaking of, you mentioned this, called Get Your Hopes Up. And then if someone's feeling discouraged, I saw last year was like super discouraging for me, at least, and a lot of people. So I created a 7-day devotional, and it's just 7 days to stop feeling discouraged. And you can get that at getyourhopesup.com if you're feeling discouraged or might just need a little help pushing past your fear like we all do. So I help.
I mean, even the title guys, right? Get your hopes up.
That's right.
That's great.
So
It's
keep saying
so
it.
good. Yep. Get your hopes up. I love it. Love it. Thank you, Christy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.